Niners, it was reported, pursued free agent corner Damon Arnett, who signed, he's playing with the Houston whatever's Roughnecks or whatever of the UFL.
Mm-hmm.
And he signed with the Houston Texans and D'Amico Ryan for just over $1 million, but the Niners and Packers were also reportedly interested. And Arnett is a talent, man. Former first-round pick, Ohio State. Raiders took him, but he's had multiple off-the-field issues. And the Niners usually steer clear of off-the-field issues. So to me, that sends a loud sounder that they are going to look under every possible stone to find a corner. And it tells me they don't like their corners. Now, they opted not to go after Jalen Ramsey, who got traded to the Steelers. But the Niners have $45 million in available cap room. It doesn't seem like they don't seem too interested in parting with any of it. But there's, you threw out Jamel Dean as a trade possibility. There's Asante Samuel in the free agent market. Rajul Douglas, Martin Emerson could be dealt by the Browns. How urgent do you think the Niners' need is at corner, and what do you take away from that Arnett interest?
I think it's fairly urgent, and I think the question was, how urgent do they think it is? Because, again, we talked about this last week. Lynch comes out, talks about the lumps that they're going to take this year. And it's like, well, wait. Where are these lumps going to happen? Because you have $46 million in cap space. It seems like you could protect yourself. And if you're starting to look around the roster, cornerback's an obvious one. You lost Charvarius Ward. Lenore just got arrested. Good player. Will he get suspended for a game or two? Don't know. And then after him, a bunch of guys who aren't really proven. So sure, add a third cornerback. Why not? Damon Arnett is cheap, but he tips their hand that they agree with us. That cornerback is one of those lump spots. So they have Trey Brown, they have Upton Stout. They got to look at them both in the OTAs and minicamp.
What'd you think, by the way? Because I thought Stout looked good, but very, very small. And I thought Brown looked totally ordinary.
Yeah. Trey Brown looked exactly like Trey Brown. Sorry, he's been in the league a while. So Damon Arnett, it seems like they're trying to find a diamond in the rough like they did with Jason Verrett once upon a time. But that's kind of strange that they'd have to go sort of dumpster diving when they have all this cap space. And I really don't like it. Jed, if you're watching, you got to spend the cap space, because if you're putting Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat, if this year matters for him and you're actually holding him accountable, he has a great excuse if they miss the playoffs and we didn't spend cap space and that wasn't my choice. I'm just saying.
Let's talk about that for just a brief second. I mean, there's I think wisdom in rolling over cap space in certain years. I think there's also really wisdom in not rolling over cap space in certain years. Now, look at your team this year. Who are the key elements of your team? The key elements of your team, from what I can tell, are Christian McCaffrey in the twilight of a Hall of Fame type career. Same with Kittle. Same with Trent. Same with Bosa. Same with Fred. Right? Am I missing something here? All their best guys, for the most part, are their kind of in the prime, in the twilight of their prime years. Every single one of those guys, logic says, will be better in 2025 than 2026. So, and you, by the way, you are hosting the Super Bowl. So there is going to be some public referendum on your franchise, whether you like it or not, at the end of the year. Wherever you want to set the bar, there you will be discussed nationally and criticized nationally in your backyard by the NFL's media throng if you crap out this year with your easy schedule. So you would think they would be a little bit more competitive, but you've referenced it, and I don't know if it's fair or not fair, but the soccer impact on this. You know, they now are fronting multiple enterprises at one time in different leagues with different standards and different, whatever. And maybe, they could argue, I'm sure they would argue, oh, it's all separate. Each entity is separate unto themselves, but, they're all owned by you. So that you're the common denominator there. Is it possible they'll spend less on the Niners in some years to spend more to establish themselves in either of these two soccer leagues they're in?
Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use promo code COHN, COHN, and download the app now. I hope not. And so Asante Samuel is going to be having a medical recheck on his neck in a few weeks. If he passes that, it'd be nice to see the Niners go out and spend some actual money on a player who's not, coming off 7 arrests. Because look, I think the issue with these soccer teams, it's not necessarily the players they sign, because I think that does come from the pool of money that they earn as soccer teams. It's the renovations to stadiums. Like, first of all, $200 million on Levi Stadium this year to get it ready for the Super Bowl and the World Cup coming up next year. $200 million right there. And then they're also expanding the stadium for Leeds United. That's another 200 million pounds. So, I mean, that's coming out of the York's pockets, or maybe that's why they sold 6% of the team so they could get $500 million in cash. Probably went to those things, but yeah, those are big investments.
It's going to be interesting. Do they go for a veteran corner? I asked Robert Saleh a pretty direct question at the end of the minicamp. I said, hey, man, you got any dudes? You got any dudes in that cornerback room or what? You had Sauce, you had Reed. Those guys were dudes. You got some starters, but what do you have? And he's like, hey, man, let's wait till camp. He was kind of begged off because he didn't, he probably sees what I see. It just seems like you got Renardo and you got Diamador Lenore, and Stout looks pretty good. Even though he's small, he looks pretty good. And then after that, it's kind of a hodgepodge of just guys. I mean, Trey Avery, Chase Lucas is not the answer. I'll tell you that right now. Darrell Luter's intriguing, but, he also was a 5th-round pick in 23. He hasn't really made an impact yet. You got a couple undrafted guys. You got some Dallas Flowers has some interesting measurables. There's some interesting guys, but I don't, Saron Neal, on paper, when you look at the guaranteed money and how the contracts are written, he's probably going to make the team because he's guaranteed $2.25 million. So they're probably going to keep him no matter what. So we're really talking about maybe one corner, but the fact that they're interested in, or were showing interest in Arnett, tells me that they're interested. If you got a corner in August that you think you don't want, before you trade them, you should call the Niners because they're probably in the market for that. All right, let's get to topic 2.
Hold on, real quick before we do. I mean, we hit the $46 million in cap space. They could get a corner, a safety, a wide receiver, an offensive lineman. All these lumps that they're preparing to take, they don't have to take them. This is totally a choice, and I don't think it's John's choice. I don't think it's Kyle's choice. I think it's the York's choice, and I think it's a terrible choice. And I think that fans should be aware of it and maybe a little bit, not like outraged, but vocal about it. Write to your local congressman and tell them you don't like this choice from the Yorks and that they should spend their money. It's their only job. It's the one job.
I mean, we got our first indication, I thought, in the undrafted market when you had everybody who's knowledgeable about the draft telling you, yeah, this is one of the deepest drafts in years. Guys that normally would be, 3rd-round picks are going to wind up in the 5th round. Guys who are 5th-round picks are going to wind up undrafted. So this was the year to make a significant investment in the undrafted market, and the Niners were like 26th in undrafted free agent spending. Despite saying goodbye to a lot of veterans, and on paper, they should have a lot of opportunity on their roster. So I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, they let some really good players go to their competitors that they probably should have signed, and the amount of savings to sit out the market is relatively nothing in the grand scheme of things. So to me, that sounds like an owner-driven belt tightening because it makes no sense as it relates to personnel gathering and roster building.
Get started at factormeals.com/Cohn50off and use code Cohn50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Can you imagine if the Warriors went into the season with $46 million in cap space? People would be like, this isn't fair to Draymond and Steph. I think the same thing applies to Trent and George Kittle. Wow. Trent is 37 years old. If you get 10 more games of his career, you should be happy. I mean, you can't plan for 2026 when he's this important to you, when Trent Williams is one of your core players. It's now.
Hey, let's be real. We want to be real. Let's be real. If I were running the 49ers and there was a time to come up with a slogan for the year, you know what my slogan would be? It's now or never. It's now or never. And that is straight across the board. Now, Brock, there may be some years there. There's a couple other guys that there's some years there. But for the stars of this football team, the guys that I just named, the guys who are Pro Bowlers, the guys who are borderline future Hall of Famers, they are not going to be better in 2 years than they're going to be this year. It is now or never. And I feel very strongly about that. And if people want to say that's a hyper negative take it for what it is. You're telling me that Trent Williams is better in 2 years? No. Bosa? No. Kittle? No. Warner?
And to your
no.
earlier question, why is it better to roll over the cap space to 2026? Why is it better to have cap space in 2026 and 2025? Those guys are just going to be older. You can always restructure players to create cap space. You've done it before. I don't understand why it's so important to roll over cap space for next year. I don't get that.
No, I guess my message would be show me a little bit more urgency, since it is really now or never for so many of these future greats.
Bryce Huff was a nice move. Keep going.
What's that?
Bryce Huff was a nice move, man. Keep going.
Right. And you know what? It's not uncommon for NFL teams to add to their mix in the late spring and early summer. We'll talk about a couple of those names before we get out of here.